Hi everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Atomic Game Theory. This is the show where we are talking all about my favorite games and bringing out some of the game theory and math that you can find in them. We're doing that here on Twitch on a show I call Game School. My name is Richard, and I love talking about games. I'm a longtime teacher, mathematician, game player, and I'm here to talk today all about lies. That's what I want to do. I want to talk about lying games and the way we lie to each other and stuff like that. And hopefully that'll help you spot liars in games in the future, in games like, Werewolf or whatever, or the games we're going to talk about today specifically. I'm really excited for this, and we're going to get a little mathy today, so I hope that you were prepared for this. If at any point you have any questions about any of the stuff we're talking about for the next hour of our show, feel free to drop them on Twitch. If you're watching right there live, perfect. You can also tweet at me at Armelina. Oh, where was it? Bam. There we go. At Armelina. And I'll check in there a couple times so that we can see those as well. How's everybody doing today? Checking in on the chat. Jonathan is already excited about an 11 o'clock theme song, which I am also excited about because 11 o'clock is now oven o'clock, which is when we start the show, because I can see our oven right over there. It's perfect. I know, in the studio right here. All right, let's do this. Let's get started. Let's talk about game number one, because we've got quite a bit to do today. And game number one is one of my favorites, and it has been for a long time. If you have watched my stuff in the past, you've already heard me rave about this game. It is Sheriff of Nottingham. I love this stinking game. It's so good. Wow. It's a lot better than you might even suspect, right? Because we've got this Robin Hood thing going on, and you're like, oh, I'm going to run around and steal from people. And no. That is not the theme of this game at all. You are actually playing one of the people of Nottingham, and you are trying to get goods to market in order to sell them. And the Sheriff of Nottingham is basically a customs agent that is going to check out all the things you do. And your job is to get past this monster in your way to sell your goods at market and in as efficient a way as possible. It's pretty wonderful. Let's see. So if we want to take a look at the game actually is pretty straightforward. Most of the game happens outside of the game board in a sense. So let me just drop down there and we can see kind of what we have. Well, first of all, the game comes with a sheriff token, which I love, because you and your fellow players are going to spend some time each being the sheriff. In a normal game, you will each be the sheriff twice. In a 3-player game, you get to do it 3 times. Fun. More sheriff time. The way this game works in the way that it compels you to lie to your friends. All right, let's break it down. The game you have, in this game, you have a bunch of cards that are basically goods. We have chickens, we got cheese, we got apples, we got bread, and then we got variations on those. They're all worth a different amount of money to take to market, and when you successfully get them across the sheriff's border post, into market, then you're going to score that much gold. And gold is good. Gold is points at the end of the game. There's also contraband that you could send, and these contraband are all different. And we got like a crossbow, we got some silk, some mead, some pepper. There's a lot of them. And they all have different values, and you'll notice much higher gold values. So getting these to market is very good for you. That's what the sheriff is trying to stop. And so you have all these cards, and you have to decide how you're going to send them to market. On any turn, you can send anywhere from 1 to 5 goods to market. So you go through your cards. You won't have this many. This is just for because I want to show some cards. You're going to start the game with 6 cards, and you're going to try and ship some of those to market. Now, the way you do that is through the declaration phase, where you say, hello, everybody. I am going to send this much of this to market. And you have to be very, very clear in your declaration. You have to say, I am shipping anywhere from 1 to 5 goods of the type chicken, cheese, apples, or bread. That's really it. Those are the four types of things that you could be shipping. You are not allowed to split that up. You cannot say I'm sending 3 chickens and 2 apples. None of that. You must declare a single type of good and a number of those type of goods that you have. And then you take those goods from your hand and you put them into a beautiful little bag, a wonderful little bag. This is my favorite part of the game, is this bag right here. This bag closes with a big loud snap, and it opens with a big loud snap, which is purposeful. You need that to play this game. Those mark moments that you cannot take back, which is very, very, very cool. Checking into Twitch real quick. All right, let's keep going. So the declaration phase is really important because you'll see that I grabbed 4 cards, but none of them are the same. It's okay. I got 2 breads that are the same. In this game, you don't have to tell the truth about what you put in the bag. You must put in the same number of cards that you declare, but they could be any kind of cards you want. I mean, obviously, you can never declare that you're shipping crossbows and silk and mead and stuff like that. I mean, that's just impossible. But you can certainly hide it in a regular shipment, because that's what you are. You are basically a smuggler. You can certainly play this game without lying in any way, with only shipping the right stuff. I've seen it done. And it takes away, well, I don't know, it's fine. You play the game the way you want to play the game. But at the start of the round, during the market phase, we have the opportunity, because it seems like, I could just have some random cards. What if I just have, like, a hand like this? This is a terrible hand, because the best I can do is ship 2 bread? I mean, it's terrible. That's terrible. Maybe I want more bread, and maybe I look over here and I see a bunch of cards, a ton of cards. There's just a bunch of them in here. And I see a bread sticking out right on top. At the start of the round during the market phase, before we declare, before we ship, before we do anything else, we have the opportunity to change the cards in our hand. So you will have 6 cards, and you basically get to take any of those 6, say, I don't want these, I want as much bread as possible, and put them face down next to the decks, and then you get to draw back up to 6. And the way you get to do that is from the discard piles, which are face up, or from the draw pile, which is secret and face down. So if I grab this bread, cool, I add it to my hand. That's fantastic. Now I have another bread. There's not another bread. There's not another chicken. Maybe I peek a little bit and I see, oh, there's some cheese. Oh, this contraband. I don't see any more bread close to the top. But maybe I see some down really, really deep and I got to dig for it. So I just start drawing cards, digging for it, and I'm letting every other player know what cards I'm taking and which cards I have in my hand to put in my bag. The sheriff should be paying attention to that stuff for sure. So potentially I can take these cards to lie to the sheriff or, whatever. Or I could take cards like this so I keep my stuff secret, but I may not get the cards that I want. Again, I'm trying to maximize my deliveries. So I probably am going to be trying to maximize the same types of cards as best that I can. Wow, I just have a truck full of apples right here. That's a great hand. So then you do your declaration phase, and maybe let's say that what I want to do is I want to ship these 3 breads, and maybe I'm going to throw in some apples in here because anything I get to market is worth points, so I might as well do it. So I take these 4, and I put them in my bag, and I say, hello, what I am shipping today is 4 bread. Bam. As soon as I click that little snap, I'm in. I'm invested. I'm locked in. And that's what is going to market. So be very careful in this game about how you decide, what to ship, because opening this up is really against the rules. As soon as you close it, it's closed. You've made a decision. Live with it. Next up. Everybody does the same thing, right? We're all on board together and we're hearing what happens. Then the sheriff gets a turn, and the sheriff, this is the meat of the game right here, so get ready, because this is good. This is my favorite. I love this game just for this. The sheriff gets to decide whether or not they're going to look into your little bag. I don't know. Are you a liar? Maybe there's just a bunch of contraband in here, but maybe you're being honest and you're shipping exactly what you said you did. Or maybe I just don't care enough to look in your bag. Maybe I think maybe you probably only smuggled a little bit and it's not really worth my time to check that one out. So the sheriff has 2 options, and those are to open the bag or not. And again, the sheriff only has 4 minutes, 1 minute per player, to make all of the decisions about this. So it's not like it's an eternal game. You can put a clock on it if you want to. And the sheriff decides whether or not to open this bag. If they do not, all of the goods in here, I guess I'm up here, all of the goods in here get shipped to market. and they all score the gold on the top of them. If you put contraband in here, great. You get plenty of gold just for that. It is fantastic. Ooh, quick question from Crow about this on here. Oh my gosh, yes. So, does past experience play a factor? For example, if the sheriff knows a player, not me, let's say it's someone else, of course, who lies regularly in games and immediately doesn't trust them, does it change the dynamics of the game? Yes, it does. Oh my gosh, yes, it does. This is how I normally play it because, I don't know, maybe you know me. I love lying in games like this. I love it. And so I'm obviously less trustworthy. This game is very good at that because the question is how, even if I am not trustworthy, even if I have lied to you about this, is it worth checking? And that makes this game really interesting. It lives in a really, really weird barrier there in the lying style games because it's not just yes or no. There's a little bit of how much. Do I care? How much is that lie worth? Because if the sheriff decides, oh, that snap, hold on. Let's do that one more time. It's just so good. It's so good. As soon as that snap happens, it's a search. And the sheriff opens them up, lays out the cards, and says, well, you said you were sending 4 bread. What's this I see? Some apples? This is an illegal good. And all of the cards down at the bottom have a little red penalty marker. Bread 2, well, actually, all legal goods, I believe it is a 2. The seller of this, so my yellow player, would have to pay the sheriff 2 gold as a penalty for trying to ship this contraband, and then this would get discarded back into our discard tray. These 3 goods are totally legal, so searched or not, they're fine, and I will take these to market. They're worth 3 gold each, and I start stacking them underneath my bread section on my board, because at the end of the game, let's see if we can take a look at one of these boards real fast, you get bonus points if you are the person with the most apples or the second most apples, the most cheese, the second most cheese. So there's also a benefit to shipping the same kind of thing over and over and over again. There's no such bonus for contraband because contraband is just amazing all on its own. So that's good, right? That's not a huge penalty if I am shipping mostly legal goods, but of course, if what I had decided to ship instead was, again, I said 4 bread, and I'm shipping 1 bread, and then an apple, and then a crossbow, and then some silk. The bread goes through because it's legal. The apples cost me 2. I have to pay it to the sheriff. Right here, a crossbow has a penalty of 4. That's a little ruthless. Silk is a 4, right? It's contraband. It's a much bigger penalty. And of course, the sheriff gets all that money, and money is points at the end of the game. So the sheriff wants to search your goods. And for the most part, if you're only shipping like 1 bad good, you're probably fine. You're paying a minimum penalty, and the stuff that you get that actually goes through is going to pay you a lot of gold, so you're going to be keeping up pretty well. Of course, the sheriff is scared to check my bag because it is possible, I don't have a 4th bread, but let's play pretend right now, that I had 4 bread on here. If all my goods are perfectly legal, then the monstrous sheriff owes me for checking my bag. What do they owe me? Well, it's kind of a red number at the bottom there. So if the sheriff searches your bag and you are playing it honest, you're shipping exactly the right thing, they owe you a ton of money. It is much better. Well, I don't know. It's about the same as if you tried to just cheat dramatically. But if you are a light cheater, if you just tend to send in 1 extra card, that penalty is almost meaningless, right? Even if it's a crossbow, and I have to pay someone 4 gold, if I pay the sheriff 4 gold, but I'm making 9 and I'm also advancing my goals of getting the most bread and stuff like that, that's pretty reasonable. So I might not be worried about the sheriff checking my bag too much in that case. All right, so the sheriff has some worry. You know, how much money are you going to make based on the contraband that you ship or the lies that you tell? Am I going to get totally in trouble for checking a bag and someone is being honest? Well, if a player is honest, you don't check their bag. That's it. You just don't. Why? They're being honest. And you can tell that through the game for sure. They might take a chance once in a while, but like overall, whatever. It's the people who are trying to send in these ridiculous bids that you probably want to check. But you don't know that unless you start checking and are willing to start paying some major penalties as the sheriff. Now, okay. How are we doing on just our bid system, our setup right there? Crow Gold says, I may need more trustworthy friends. And that is a thing I learn about this game all the time, or at least that my friends learn about me. Lying in a game is really hard. I'm going to look at another game in a little bit, and I also want to talk about lying in just a bit to hopefully get us in a different place with lying and kind of see how they work. These games I like to call lying light games that we're going to talk about today. Werewolf is a game where, for example, I could be lying about every single thing I say, but the thing I have to say is, am I a werewolf or not? And that is pretty drastic overall. When you think about that, that's like the core of my being. Am I lying or not? This game has a big, a difference in the, like, what am I lying about right now? How much am I lying? How much do you care about my lie? It's a little bit more open, which is why I think this is a good training game for someone, I don't know. I'm not going to say join the NSA after playing Sheriff of Nottingham, but it certainly helps you think about these, like, small scale lies. So if you hate lying games, this game might still be okay. If you are totally uncomfortable with it, right, then this game has done one other thing that makes it really, really fun. Let's say that you are shipping 3 bread, and we'll throw 1 silk in there, right? 1 contraband. You claim that you have 4 bread. You close your tab. Oh, it's so satisfying. Drop it down and say, check it out, Sheriff. I got 4 bread. And the sheriff is like, I don't think that's true. I think you probably have 1 contraband in there, and that's going to give me 4 gold, so I'm going to open your bag. And you say, hold on, Sheriff. I don't want you to go through all that trouble just for me. What if I give you, I don't know, let's say, what if I hand you 4 gold? Out of my stash. I am going to bribe you. I'm totally going to do it. What if I give you 4 gold for you not to check my bag? I mean, we know from just how we've set that up that the penalty for that contraband is 4 gold. And the sheriff is certainly aware that that is exactly worth the amount of money that you would get, right? So maybe the sheriff goes, well, that evens out, so I don't really care. But maybe they're like, well, hold on. Sure, I would get 4 gold as the penalty, but you daring rogue, you dashing rogue, are gonna make like, $7, $8, or $9 or gold on that. So I'm gonna need a larger bribe because you are going to get more of this money. What if you give me 5 gold, which is better than I would get, and then you, sure, make your thing. And I go, sure, that sounds like a great deal. 5 gold for you, and you don't check my bag. If the sheriff agrees and takes my gold, that is a binding deal. The sheriff is not allowed in any way to open my bag. The only gold or deals that are not binding in this are future favors. So while I might say something like, how about I only give you 4 gold, and I promise that when I am the sheriff next turn, I won't open your bag no matter what. That is not a binding agreement, so I don't have to do it. But anything right in this turn is binding. I can do other things. I can say, look, I'm going to end up sending, maybe there's something a little weird in there, but I'm going to send a bunch of bread, and I will certainly, I believe I can do this, give you one of my bread tokens, or I can give you the gold once we get to market or something like that. I mean, that's getting into that future favor phase a little bit, but that's still this round, and that stuff is all good. So you have many ways to mitigate the sheriff and say, like, look, I know we're both lying. I know it. You know it. I know it. We're we're breaking all the rules. It's fine. It doesn't matter. That's what this game is about. I'm going to pay you not to open this bag. And I promise you, it's really not worth it if you look in here. I'm still going to get most of my stuff to market. If you check it out, I'll lose out on one thing. Fine. Could I instead be shipping this ridiculous, instead of 3 bread, 1 bread, and like a bunch of contraband? Sure, absolutely. I don't have to tell the truth about what's in my bag, ever, for any reason. It's closed. It's sealed. It's a Schrodinger's bag right now. So the sheriff has to be really careful about the deals that they accept. However, as the game continues and every player is taking a turn being the sheriff, maybe you want to think about that. It's not just like green player's the sheriff all day long. Is going to learn about you and your lies. Everyone's lying to each other all the time, kind of all the time. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. Now, there are a couple other things that can happen. For example, when the sheriff gets contraband or gets these illegal goods, they put them back in here. Whenever you discard, you can put these down in any order you want to. So if you know someone wants apples, you can dump those apples underneath like 3 levels of contraband or whatever you want, so that if they want those apples, they have to go digging through contraband to get it. That's a big sign that they may be trying to ship contraband in the future. Excuse me, because they'll have it. Maybe they'll hold on to it and do something. But for the most part, by seeing what people grab here, you get a sense of what they're going to try and ship. And you certainly will be able to know if they call 5 apples. If you didn't see them grab a bunch of apples out of here, it's not possible. So there's a little bit of stuff there as well. There are ways to break through people's lies. For the most part, this game is about everybody kind of lying almost all the time. Let's see. Checking Twitch real quick. I got a couple questions. Crow mentions that Win, Lose, Banana is also a game that is only lying. The only way to win is to be the most convincing liar. Not me. Not a game for me. That is terrifying. That's one reason that I'm not great at a game like Werewolf. I do enjoy Werewolf. It's, in a sense, I've played it way too many times, so of course I have to get some enjoyment out of it. I think it is kind of tricky. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Actually, in a moment. We're almost there. We're almost to the math. All right, we also have Adam. Adam asks, can you bribe the sheriff if you want them to check your bag? I suppose so. I don't see why not. I mean, you can give them money all you want. And they're just going to open your bag anyways. Why would you do it is an interesting question. Because you're just going to lose out on some of the things you shipped. But I see what you're saying. Could you bribe them to open your bag, and the bribe is minimal, and they open the bag, and it is all honest, so they owe you a pretty big penalty? I would have to check the rules to double check, but I'm pretty sure that just means they owe you some money for it. You have successfully cheated the sheriff. Well done. Seems like a good thing to do if you were playing, for example, Will Scarlet, rather than this, I don't know, kindly chef. I bet there's contraband. I bet there's a crossbow at the bottom of that basket. It's a very strange game. I do love it. Where did my purple tile go? Right, so we've got all our... This is a fun game. It's great. I like it. I like all these characters. They're all silly, cartoony. It's great. It's a great game. And again, look at that sheriff. Look at that mustache. That long mustache. I promise I will never grow one. Cool. So, Sheriff of Nottingham, great. I really, really enjoy it. I really recommend that you play it because, like I said, it is a game about light lies told often. And that's a very different deal than every once in a while someone says, "Are you the werewolf?" And you're like, "No." And then you're caught. So it's a game-ending thing. If someone catches you in a lie right here, you have multiple opportunities to change your strategy and whatever else. I think I've gone through this pretty well. At the end of it, basically, your score at the end of the game is you add up your gold, you add up any bonuses that you might have here, and you also add up the gold of every good that you have successfully shipped. So not shipping things is not to your benefit. You do want to be getting goods to market. And so if a sheriff has it out for you, ship honest goods. Just do it. Just over and over again until they learn a lesson by checking your contraband constantly. And at the end of that, maybe they'll let some of your contraband through. Who knows? I've played this game often with many, many people. Everyone has different experiences. Hold on just a second. There it is. With lies and how they decide to be the sheriff and judge you. I'm a pretty free, caring sheriff. You bribe me, I'm good because I get some money out of it. But I know a lot of people who are super serious, and they're just like, nope, I think you probably have a piece of contraband. I will search everything. I will always search everything. And then it gets, what's bribery for? So it's such a strange game. It's a very, very weird game, and I really, really, really do love it, and I recommend that you try it at least one time. The Sheriff of Nottingham. It's got an award. Origin Awards winner, Board Game of the Year, 2015. It's good. It's not just me that thinks so. All right. While I do some super secret cleanup over here and get ready for my next game, let's check in with the chat. What are your thoughts on Sheriff of Nottingham? Ooh, hello, our dapper streaming friend. There's always a crossbow at the bottom of the basket. Darn right there is. I mean, that's how this game should be working. Also, how I missed the beginning. How long does it take the game to play this game? Is it something a group could play over a lunch hour? That is a pretty good question. I think that it is possible to play in that short of a time. Depends, especially if you are really, really good about enforcing the time limit. I mean, if you play with 4 players, right, and you each get to be the sheriff twice, that is 8 sessions of sheriff time at the very most. You don't, of course, have to play that entire 4 minutes. Maybe you've made your choices before that, and that's probably all to the good. But yeah, so 8. I mean, it's like half an hour right there, just of about half an hour just right there. So making decisions beyond that, it could be played pretty quickly, especially if you were very, very strict about how you want to go about, listening to your timer and making sure that 4 minutes is the maximum. It can get pretty nuts. If you're playing 3-player, it's actually, you do it 3 times. So that's, I guess, a little bit longer. 3 times, 3 times 4, whatever. 3 times 3 times 4. There we go. There we go. A little bit longer. So it depends on how much extra planning there is about putting your hands together and doing the discard stuff and all that. It doesn't take very long for sure. I would definitely put that as a good hour game. All right. Let's see, how's Oven O'Clock doing? Oven O'Clock tells me that we're doing just fine. And that means what I want to do actually right now is start talking about some of the math that I wanted to talk about today. Because I am a math guy, and there are some things that I love, and one of them is about lying and how we recognize liars. And in order to do that, I got to take a huge, brief aside, and I need to teach you how the Richter scale works. I am down in LA now, so the Richter scale is something I think about. I teach to my students quite a bit. And let me teach you a little bit about how the Richter scale works, and we're going to lead this into lying. So as we're talking about this, think in the background about telling lies and how often you tell lies. Especially in a game like Sheriff Nottingham, lying a little bit, not a huge deal, or maybe a huge deal. Maybe you telling one lie is the thing that just, breaks you out into a flop sweat or something. And that's pretty terrifying. Let me jump over and let's talk about the Richter scale. Keep lying in the back of your mind. But this is going to be the Richter scale for just a moment. So here we go. Boom, boom, boom. The Richter scale is an exponential scale. This is a pretty interesting, the way we think about many types of functions are linear. They are things that grow at a pretty slow and constant rate. But a lot of things actually grow exponentially. And our definition for exponential is that as a function is growing, the rate at which it is growing is also growing. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, faster and faster and faster. The classic difference between these is talking about kids and kids and their allowances, right? This is I don't know, I've heard this one way too many times. It's like you have 2 kids and one of them gets $100 a week, boom, for 52 weeks for the full year. And the other kid, the first week gets a penny, and then they double that every single week, right? So the question is, which one of those 2 allowances would you rather have? And obviously it's $100. Woo, $100 a week, that's perfect. That means week 2, I can go buy something pretty awesome. But if I'm willing to be the second kid who gets a penny the first week, let's start thinking about how that's going to work. The first week is a penny, the second week is 2 pennies, then it's 4, right? Then it's 8, then it's 16, then it's 32, then it's 64, then it's a dollar finally. So that means it takes 9 weeks. Did I do that right? To get up to $1, which is still, you're so far behind. You're $1,000 behind the other kid, right? But think about that again. It's going to take another 9 weeks for you to get from $1 to $100, right? Because again, it's going to be $1, $2, $4, $8, $6, right? It's just going to keep building and building and building. And then now that's 18 weeks, I've got a whole lot of year left, and I'm now at the point where I'm making the same amount as kid number 1, and it's going to keep doubling. It's going to keep doubling, right? So it doesn't take me very long to catch up to the other kid, and at the end of another 9 weeks or so, I'm up to, $1,000 a week, and another 9 weeks, and then I'm up to $10,000 a week. So it all gets really, really big, really fast. That's the idea behind exponential functions. Exponential functions are also, we find them when we deal with things like population, carbon decay. Those are my classic examples that I always throw out in math classes. All right. So the Richter scale deals with exponential curves. And if I consider a small window of the Richter scale, we're going to start down here pretty low. We've got, you see at the bottom, there's like 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So 0 is like the constant background shaking of the Earth. 1 is something that we're probably never going to notice. 2, okay, maybe this is a possibly. 3, we're getting into the point where we may notice a 3, but I have certainly slept through them in the past. Let's consider these 2 points right here. I'm just going to pick two quick, easy intersections here at 2.2 and 2.6. So this is a difference of 0.4 on the Richter scale. Not a huge deal. The bottom is the scale itself. But what I care about a little bit more is the moment magnitude. So I'm going to go back to my face again. This is weird. When you're teaching, I mean, sometimes you got to be up on the chalkboard, and sometimes you just got to look at me say things. So the moment magnitude is basically, you know, on the seismograph, it's got like the little line that goes across and then it's just bouncing back and forth, right? The moment magnitude is basically how high is that thing at any moment. And while these numbers are not exactly the numbers they use for the Richter scale, it's a pretty similar idea. So how tall is that needle going when it is a very powerful earthquake? You know, it's huge up and down, huge up and down. And in the middle, it's just kind of, you know, in the middle. And if it's 0, it's 0. It's not going anywhere. So you can think about that as kind of the height of the needle at any point on our scale. All right. So one of the things that we want to do here is thinking about the difference between the moment magnitudes with this 0.4 difference on the Richter scale. And I promise we're also talking about lying here. So right here, we can see that these values correspond to certain moment magnitudes. So we can think about this as earthquake intensity. We can think about it, you know, I mean, that's the easiest way. How much is it all shaking around as that needle is flying up and down, right? And here we have a difference of 240. Again, these numbers are, you know, for the purposes of explaining what's going on. This is, if you're into the math, this is just a 10 to the x function. That's it. Simple, simple, simple. So let's see. Let's take a look at this, because this difference of 0.4 we find pretty meaningful. And as we talk about earthquakes, we often mention how as the intensity increases, right, these differences are very, very meaningful. And we feel like we can notice the difference between like a 2.2 and a 2.6. But let's go a little bit higher on our chart. Let's move up to 4, 5, and 6. You can see that on the y-axis, things have changed pretty dramatically already, and we'll get to that. Again, a 3 is something that we probably are going to notice. 4, we certainly are, and 5, we're getting into real destructive earthquakes. 6, even more so. The Richter scale goes up, I mean, I suppose, infinitely. There are no 10s in recorded history. We've had a couple 9s. Those are like generally happen on like a millennial scale. And the earthquake that killed all the dinosaurs, we think it was about a 13 on that scale, which seems like it should be like a 50, but that's not the way the Richter scale works. If I take another look at a brief window, and again, I want to buckle down on like a tight difference here. So the difference between 5.6 and 6.0, this is, again, a difference of 0.4 on the Richter scale. And if I look at the outputs that go with these, they are massive, huge. Look at that top number, 1 million versus 400,000. The top number is more than twice as much as the number beneath it. A difference of 600,000. That's ridiculous. All right. So for the moment, I want you to think about this. As we're looking at these earthquake intensities, right? At lower levels, the difference in the Richter scale talks about small differences in intensity. And at higher levels, the same difference on the Richter scale talks about a massive difference in intensity, right? Are you getting ready? Are you ready? Are you close? We're very close to talking about lies. Any questions on that in the chat right now? Yes, earthquakes are known for lying, so all of this tracks. Absolutely. No, perfectly. Those darn lying earthquakes. Let's move on to the next step, because if you think about taking this graph that we have, and we flip it on its side, what we usually like to say is that the Richter scale is logarithmic. A logarithmic curve is just kind of a little alternate version. It's just a little flipped. And you can see basically on the left side is the Richter moments, and on the right side is kind of the intensity. And I've just chosen 2 little sections right here to take a look at real quick. And what I want to think about is these 2, now the difference is based on intensity of the earthquakes, right? Over here on the left, we have the difference of 1,000 in intensity from 1,000 to 2,000. And on the right side, we have something between 10,000 and 11,000. So now we are taking a look at constant differences in intensity. And these lines kind of try to highlight how far apart they are on our Richter scale. If you look at the one on the left, that's the difference between like a 3 and what's that going to be? Like a 3.3 on the Richter scale. And that's a noticeable distinction. But over on the right, I can barely tell those two lines apart. We're looking at like 3.985 and 4.028. I don't know. Not a massive or meaningful difference there. And in fact, this one on the left is a difference that is noticeable by humans. And on the right, we have something that we cannot notice. All right. So think about that right here. We have the same amount of actual difference in earthquake intensity, and one of them is noticeable by us, we can understand, we can think about, and the other one is totally not noticeable by us. Okay, so logarithmic scales, just a little bit weirder, just a little bit more bizarre. They tell us basically how many zeros there are in a digit if we go back in time and think about that on the exponential graph we were looking at. But the differences are weird, like how we can actually notice the differences in earthquakes. I will never be able to look at an earthquake and notice the difference between a 4.1 and a 4.100003, even though as the earthquakes increase on the scale, the magnitude moment between them is such a massive difference. I will not be able to notice those differences, and we can never talk about them that way. It's terrible. This is actually a real rule. This is called Weber's Law. No relation at all. I got 2 B's in my name. The needed amount of noticeable increase in a stimuli is proportional to its intensity. Let's break this down. I swear. Come into lies very quickly. So if we think about this law and we think about how it applies to, let's say you were trying to talk to someone. Let's do that. And you're in a quiet room. And the person says, "Excuse me, can you speak up? I cannot hear you." And so you speak up a little bit, just a little bit. There's my hand. And they can hear you because we can notice those differences in intensity. It's like when it is dark and you turn on your phone and it's on like the lowest light setting, but bam, you notice the difference between no light and some light as a huge brightness. However, at much higher levels, we do not notice those differences in intensity. If you go into a very loud restaurant and you say, "I can't hear you, can you please speak up?" They might, and you might be able to hear them, and they might like speak even louder than you would expect, and you still can't hear them, and it's because the difference in intensity is not enough for you to actually be able to perceive it as different. And we've see this in all sorts of things. This is a test. It's oh my gosh, a couple different psychologists looked into this law in particular, and they were looking at the difference between, they did lots of tests, including light testing, sound testing, whatever else, things that you would notice if we talked about. Another good example is if you take a pair of like small apples and you hold on to them in your hands, you can probably tell which one of them, even if they're about the same size, which one of them weighs more and which one of them feels larger in your hands. If you do the same thing, I don't know, with like watermelons, and the watermelons are roughly the same size, and someone asks you which one is heavier, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. You may easily get that one wrong, because unless they are drastically different, we will not be able to notice the difference. The difference that is necessary for us to pay attention to it is proportional to its overall intensity. And that is Weber's Law, which is fantastic. How does that help us spot a liar? Well, let's do it. Let me check the Twitch chat real quick. Make sure everybody is up on Weber's Law and everything else. Okay. We cannot call it the Richter scale. I did not come up with it. Whatever Richter who did probably deserves all the recognition possible for that. Oh my gosh. That's fantastic. Let's get into it. So for lying, I have to take us all the way back because I love looking at lying, the reasons that people do lie, the benefits that you get out of it, how to spot a liar. All those things are really interesting. I did a talk at PAX Dev a few years ago that was about like the history of betrayal. I love these kind of games. I love talking about why people make these choices because it is all game theory. Game theory is really about self-motivated people who are doing what is best for them to get what they want. And of course, betrayal and lying is a major part of that. And we can definitely talk about how that's not what people do. We would never be that terrible. But really, there are a lot of moments where we are kind of a little bit selfish and self-motivated. People talk about like, well, what if you have a family? Well, families are a thing that are part of yourself, and working towards their goals is part of working towards your goals for the most part. So we bake altruism into game theory by saying that altruism is in general selfish, and then we'll talk about that and whatever. And psychology does kind of the same deal, right? If you want to talk about game theory and lying, then you got to go all the way to the source. Machiavelli. So let's talk about Machiavelli for a second. This is one of the quotes that I find incredible. It is a very wise thing to simulate madness. What the heck is he talking about here? There are kind of two major game theorists that I like to talk about. This is from an essay that I worked on Mike Selinger's book, Game Theory in the Age of Chaos, was comparing Machiavelli to Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu, very, very tactical. If you are strong, be strong, keep moving. Armies moving forward, fight, fight, fight. Machiavelli was this ridiculous politician living in a time of like political chaos where princes are like fighting against each other and lords or whatever, the royals they're all over the place. They're fighting for power amongst each other, and they want to find people who are weak and they want to take them down. And Machiavelli was talking right here specifically about people who are weak, who are not strong enough to beat their allies, but do not want to be kicked out of the game. And so they said, it is a very wise thing to simulate madness, saying, be chaotic. Don't let people know what is true and what is false about you, because if you can do that, then people will not be able to tell when you are actually weak or when you are strong, when you are lying or when you are telling the truth, because they can't trust you at all. Okay, fair enough. Good work, Machiavelli. Let's talk, teaching us how to be monstrous. But what I want to do is I want to think about that in the context of Weber's law. Let's get mathematical. Let's talk about the logarithms of lying right here, because it is the same deal. If you are a person who is playing a game like Sheriff of Nottingham and you rarely tell the truth, or sorry, you always tell the truth. You rarely lie. There we go. You always tell the truth, and then you tell one lie, and it's a big one. And you're worried about it, and you start sweating, you start panicking, you start worrying. We, as humans, all right, I haven't tested this, so don't, let's not bear down on it, but consider that we can tell that person is lying. We are a much better judge about telling when an honest person tells a lie than when someone who lies constantly tells another one. Right? We can't tell the difference between those things as easily unless we go from drastic to super drastic, right? We got to up that intensity quite a bit. It is just this proportional sensory experience that we have. And the more we think about how this law affects the way that we perceive the world, it gets really interesting. The noise one always gets me. You're walking down the street, you're listening to your phone, trying to take a phone call or something like that, and it's loud around you. You can crank that up as far as you want. You're not going to be able to hear the call because it needs to be so dramatically louder in order to tell what's going on. You're listening to music. When it's down really, really low, crank it up one dot. Perfect. You can tell the difference between those. But from the top end to the next lowest one, you can't tell the difference. So Imagine, if you will, someone who's just spouting lies endlessly, and they tell another one. We cannot tell, we cannot have the distinction between those because the intensity is so maximized that we don't know what's going on. So Machiavelli would have been totally into this idea because he would have just explained it in these rules. He would have said, what you need to do is make yourself more intense, like have a more intense relationship with truth and falsehoods, because then people are a little bit more tenuous about how they decide they want to interact with you, and how to tell whether you are telling the truth or not. My suggestion here is not for liars to get better at lying, although that's kind of the same thing. What I want you to do, people at home, is as you are thinking about these liars, think about, are they telling massive, massive lies all the time? Because if they're telling lies all the time, that may be a hint that they are trying to get big lies past you. Of course, if they are being, for the most part, honest, it's a lot harder. Well, it's a lot easier to tell that they are lying, that they are slipping a little bit. And again, if they're lying all the time, if they're chaotic all the time, just mess with them. They're lying to you constantly. Checking I just went to check our Twitch chat, and of course, so lie constantly in all areas of life. Got it. Thank you. I don't think I'm making things better right now. Weber's Law is wild. It's all over the place. I love thinking about it. Yeah, it comes up in physics when we talk about measuring things. Again, we feel a lot like we can measure small distances of time, and maybe we can, but it's very hard to tell how, maybe we can tell the difference between like 5 seconds and 6 seconds has passed, something like that. But I don't know, an hour and a second, whatever, we can't do that. It's hard to tell how long a class is supposed to go because an hour is a long time. I have heard philosophically that Weber's Law also explains why life seems to go faster as you get older, because when you're young, a year is a very major part of your life, and when you get older, had a couple more years behind you, so the difference between 1 year and the next shrinks down. There is our... All right, we've gone from how to lie effectively to maximum crushing disappointment, so I want to talk about another game. Let's get out of this little cycle. Here we go. I want to take a look now at my second game for the day, which is Growl. This is by Joey Vigor. This is a game that I was very happy to get to test multiple times at First Play LA, which is the prototype group I'm part of here in LA. I love it. I ended up kickstarting this in such a way to get the Howly Growly box, which is like a fuzzy sock that goes over the game, which makes it pretty unique on my shelf. It's got good googly eyes and everything. And the sock just covers it, so like this mouth is sticking out, which is pretty cool. It's a good design, good idea. The game itself is a werewolf game, but it has some major differences that make this game, for me, a whole lot more fun and a whole lot more playable, because werewolf is just something I struggle with sometimes. I'm gonna be honest. Spent some time on that math. Okay, checking my clock. We may go a little long today. I hope that's okay with everyone. Here's our player board for this one. It's nothing really dramatic. Each one of us is going to have a tile, which on one side has like this cool werewolf cloud scene and things like that, and on the other side, you're dead. That's it. But the tile is very important for a major part of the game. This is mostly a card-based game. And there aren't very many cards because it's a werewolf game. It can't get that dramatic, can't get that expansive. I mean, it can, but it starts to get pretty wild. We have bites. Fair. Cool. All right. We have wounds. All right. I like the pitchfork. You can tell already. Bites are from wolves. Wounds are from an angry, screaming mob. Sorry about the refocusing in the background. I'll be careful about that. We have salves. We have charms. Ooh. And last up, we have gold. There's a bunch of gold in here. That's it. That's the whole deck. That's the entire deck of cards. And the way this game works is very simple. At the start of the game, you pass out a number of gold cards equal to the number of players there are, -1, and then you throw in a bite. Maybe you throw in 2 bites, depending on how many players there are. But this tells you who in the game is going to start as Wolf 0. So just like every werewolf game, we need a mechanic for there to start with werewolves. Otherwise, the story sucks. So you pass those out at the start, and those become part of your starting hand. And you are going to have more and more of these cards as time passes in your hand. Now, okay. The next thing that happens is we take a couple cards that represent nights and final nights, and these are pretty straightforward. They change the rules of the game. They allow something weird to happen partway through. For example, this first night card is Insomnia, and it says target any living player, including yourself. Then discard this, and night falls. Night is an important part of this game. It happens 3 times, and things change during the night. During this night, well, some stuff happens. Let's leave it there for now. Let's learn how to play the game first. Anytime during the game, well, if you are Wolf 0 at the start of the game, you are a werewolf. But at any point in the game, if you have 3 bite cards in your possession, you are now a werewolf. You are secretly a werewolf. Don't tell anyone you're a werewolf. But you change, and your goals in the game change. It's great. It's great. Similarly, If you have 3 wounds at any time, you are dead. You just flip your thing over. That one's not a secret, unfortunately. There are some cards. There are charms. If you have a charm in your hand preemptively... Oh my gosh, I should just go back to my face, honestly. If you have a charm card preemptively, it will protect you from a single bite card, but you cannot get them out of after the fact to undo becoming a werewolf. Once you're a werewolf, you're done. There are also salve cards somewhere in here. I've messed up my deck. There they are. And these do protect you from wounds as well, so you can live a little bit longer. The way the game works is you have this deck of cards all shuffled up. Oops, I got rid of my face. I got rid of the board. You shuffle these all up and you insert night and final night cards kind of like, you know, a third of the way and 2/3 of the way, and then put a final night at the very end. You're going to see these coming for sure. You take these cards, you flip them upside down. Now you have your deck to play with. We go around the table, and on your turn, let's go back to it. Drop back down. On your turn, if it is this player's turn, they're going to take this wound card, and they're going to give it to someone. Cool, right? Well, if you have 3 wounds, you die, so be really, really careful. But maybe you can pass wounds to people you think are werewolves to get them out of the game. Maybe you just have to ship them to someone. Okay, I didn't actually shuffle this. It's a little terrifying. Maybe what you get out of this deck are some salves and charms, and so you want to pass them around as well to protect people from this. And so there's a ton of conversation. You're all in the community. You're all trying to get the best stuff. So maybe I've given someone a wound one turn. I'm going to give them a salve the next turn to kind of counteract what's going on there. And over time, we're going to get all of these cards out, and we're going to run through the deck until we get down to night, our first night. The way night works is very good and starts to change how this game works. People can die here for sure. People, I guess, could become werewolves, but you're certainly not trying to make more werewolves because the humans want to win the game. And the werewolves want to outnumber the humans, so probably they just want to kill the humans. Maybe they want to convert them, but it's kind of hard to do. During the night, each player takes a card from their hand and they place it. Say I'm this player right here. I'm going to choose one of my cards and I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to take another one of my cards. All my cards are the same. And I'm going to put it right here on this. Those 2 players are going to receive those 2 cards. Haha. It's going to be great. It's going to go into their hands, so they will not be public knowledge what they get. The other players are going to do the same, giving cards to their neighbors. These come out of their hands, not from out of their the stuff in front of them, just for the record. Then, when this player checks these cards, they take both of them, and they shuffle them up so that they don't know who gave them which card. And then they flip them over, and they realize their friends hate them. They got 2 wounds. That's no good. This person over here got a bite and a charm, so they know automatically that one of their neighbors are werewolves because the bite card has a special rule that says only werewolves can pass a bite card during the night. They're one of the major ways to make new werewolves happen. That is most of the game right there, honestly. It is just running through this deck and trying to do this like resource management phase almost right here, where you're giving wounds and bites out and charms and salves so that everybody survives as long as possible. Meanwhile, during the night, things can change, which feels a lot like the way the game Werewolf is supposed to work, is with these kind of like minor changes, but that's the entire game. This one, the community is doing stuff, not just like voting and talking, and is that person lying or is that person lying, whatever. It's all about passing these cards out. And so on my turn, if I want to be really, really ruthless and I see someone with 2 wounds and a salve card comes up and they're like, give me that so it heals me. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm going to pass it to someone else. You're probably a werewolf anyways. I'd rather you were dead. Whether or not that's true, who knows? It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's really, really fun. The night cards do change the game quite a bit, and there's a bunch of these that you can choose from. The Truth Serum says that target another living player. If they're a werewolf, they must privately show you a bite card, because you wouldn't be a werewolf without any bite cards. Usually. Although you could be Wolf 0 and you have passed your bite cards away, so you don't appear to have any bite cards. If you are a human or a wolf without a bite card, you must show something else. So you can't talk about this until after night has happened. But the next day, you can certainly talk about what you learned in the events of the game. So we go around, we keep going. At the end of the game, because this is not a very long game, you ask for, there's a moment. What is the moment called exactly? It's not the sniff. The sniff is when, if there are multiple werewolves, they all get to see who they are at the start. At the end, it is just the growl, right? So the way the game works, the way the game was named, is that the wolf zeros start growling, and then all the other players who are also werewolves, that's how you let everybody know who's a werewolf, they all growl together. And then we get to see who is victorious, the werewolves or the humans. Who is there the most left of? Of course, if you're dead, you're out of the game, out of the running. You get skipped for all these other things. No one is passing cards to you if you're out of the game. The big thing about the game is the gold cards. If you decide to play multiple hands of this, then at the end, whenever you are done, the player with the most gold is awarded the title of Wolf Champion, Wolf Noble, Wolf Royal, whatever you want to call it, as you've won the game. So it's a game where there is this minimal stuff going on, right? All of this, which is fun and great, but also we're trying to gather as much gold as possible. This is another great game, I think, for our just pseudo lying here. Again, it's a game of multiple small lies in order to conceal a major fact, which Werewolf doesn't give you. Werewolf, you lie about yourself all the time, and that's it. Yes or no, am I a werewolf? All I want out of lying games is a way to minimize the intensity of that lie, because that if I'm not like throwing lies out there all the time, that's something that you can notice. These are all smaller scale lies, and smaller scale makes it much easier to, number one, play the game, because you get to just do these little things all the time, but it's also it's good practice at getting noticed, getting the ability to notice when other people are lying. And I highly recommend that for both of these, you are thinking about the ridiculousness of Weber's Law as you're doing it, because someone who acts irrationally all the time, I don't know, here's a player card. One of these players keeps giving out wounds, keeps giving out bites to people in a way that doesn't make any sense to you. Potentially they're doing it because they're trying to hide something really specific. They're hoping that inside of their chaos, inside of the ridiculous of their madman theory, they are trying to trick you away from what they're doing. Maybe they're saying, I'm just confused, I just don't know, so I'm just doing whatever seems logical on my turn. I'm just handing things out at random. But if I see someone acting in such a chaotic way, I should be tempted to think that they are lying to me about whatever the heck they're doing. And I need to be able to do that in this game. I need to be able to do it in Sheriff of Nottingham, in any lying game I can think of. So practice it in these small scale lying games. I find them to be much more fun. It is one reason that I enjoyed Secret Hitler, is because there's a game as well as lies. I don't want to play Werewolf where the game is just lying to other people. That's a little bit not as much fun to me. It's not exactly what I want to be doing as I'm playing these games. Let's see, what else? Any final thoughts on these two? I'm going to check our Twitch chat real quick. Oh my gosh. Crow asks, can you end up with all humans or all werewolves in this game? Absolutely you can. That has happened many, many times, and the best thing about it is you don't know it. Like, whenever you're playing werewolf, the moderator tells you, oh, we can stop playing now, all the humans are dead. This game, you just keep playing, because you might have a table full of werewolves and someone still dies because they're getting too many of these wound cards, and you're passing them around because you don't know if there are humans left, and so you are trying to keep your identity hidden, right? So you want to stay in the game, otherwise you don't get any gold at the end of it. So there are certainly those moments. There are, of course, no moments when everyone is human, because as soon as you turn into a werewolf, it doesn't matter if you get handed a charm or not. You're a werewolf. That's it. So you can just eat these up and just, have them hanging around your neck. It's not like, he intentionally didn't make these like silver bullet cards, right? That would somehow burn the werewolf out of you or something like that. So if you are a werewolf, you can collect them. It's weirdly like a vampire who collects garlic, but it's kind of in that vein. You do want to keep as many of those cards as possible. Keep them away from the humans so that your bites work. There is no penalty in this game. Just a quick check, but I'm pretty sure there's no penalty if everyone is a werewolf at the end. It's just more fun that way. Players on the winning team at the end of it gain an additional gold token, or gold as well. So you just keep track of that. There's a sack full of gold coins that come with the game, so that just in case you want to, be playing with the gold, play this over many, many rounds. This game in particular, when Joey put it out with a series of expansions. I love boxes that do this. Including curses, spells, undead, and the Seven Sins expansion. So there's a bunch of stuff in there that does change the way the game works, adds a little bit more variety to it. So if you do get bored with just the basic version of the game, you can mix it up quite a bit. All right, what else do we got in there? Looks like all of our questions. Quick check on Twitter as well. I have not been as good as checking Twitter today. I apologize. But that is all right. Well, so what I would say about these games is really, really think about how you can spot someone who is lying to you in these games, because there are tons of, we love betrayal games. There's a moment of chaos in them that is really unique. You just can't get the same feeling out of just a regular deck of cards as when, you're playing Battlestar Galactica and the Cylon decides to blow up one of the major rooms, saying like, hey, I'm a Cylon, enjoy this. I've blown up the bridge. So they're fun, they're game-changing, they're dramatic, and I remember those games, which is one of the reasons that I like playing them so much. If you are the kind of player who also likes that, check out these games. Both Growl and Sheriff of Nottingham give you these abilities to incrementally watch lies happen, give you a better sense about what lies look like, and how to spot them, especially when they are small scale, because a game like Battlestar Galactica, for example, is a huge game where if you are a traitor, you can really mess it up. But if you take small actions, you can be successful as a betrayer. You don't have to have a flop sweat the whole time. You really don't. Just small, minor steps. You will become better at playing these kind of games. And people will see you do it, and they'll be like, oh, I know what liars look like, and I should be better at that as well. Also, feel free, get mathematical, study Weber's law. Absolutely take a look into exponential functions and logarithmic functions. I find them fascinating, and they are also things that humans are very, very bad at intuitively understanding because, like I said, it's an intensity change. If I am getting $100 for my allowance every single week, I always know what I'm getting every week, and I know how much I'm going to get next week. That's a linear thing. I understand that 100%. Exponential is totally weird. It's a whole different deal. There's some mathematical, like, I don't know, go explore that. Go explore some math. Being positive about math today. I love it. I love it. All right. It is second 11 o'clock. Oven o'clock. It is noon. That is the end of our class for today. I just wanted to take a look at some games about lying and give you the opportunity to kind of take a look at those, talk about Weber's law a little bit. If you have enjoyed Game School, please head to atomicgametheory.com, where this episode will be posted along with previous streams, links to YouTube videos, and some of the older videos I did once upon a time. There's a bunch of writing there as well. There's lots of stuff. And you can always get a hold of me at Armelina on Twitter anytime you like. This has been fun. This has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back next week here on Twitch at 11 o'clock on Sunday as we continue with some Game School. All right? Have a great night. Have a great day. It's daytime. It's noon. Go outside. See you later. Bye.